bumper car.
I think they frown against us playing bumper cars, though.
It's on rails.
Door.
Yeah, this car has not been in service for a number of years, and
It's a little sticky.
a little sticky.
You want to
All right,
switch to get
raise
better
the brakes
position
and
now?
down the controller.
The other way?
We don't want to hit the curb too hard.
Shall I do it?
Fine.
Do I do anything?
Now back over. Can't stop here. Call me your car company.
No, when we
They can't pick that up up there. The Call your car company at Black.
Welcome to the Trolley Museum.
Only been trained since you've been here.
We're just waiting for that car
That's
to move
okay.
out of the way.
Yeah, we don't want to have
This
an
is
accident.
Talbot Park. We built this runaround about 15 years ago. The Talbot family gave us a little bit of extra width here to build the loop around. For a car like this, it doesn't matter very much. The seats reverse. There's
Yeah,
controls
that's what I
on both
saw.
ends. We can run either way. But some of the larger cars are synchrolated, and we used to have to reverse them back down the hill. Pretty uncomfortable.
Yeah.
So we built Talbot Park. But it's done something else for us. It's given us a destination, somewhere to go to. It's an artificial destination. It wasn't here until we put Talbot Park
Yeah.
here. And that's what many, many streetcar companies did around the turn of the century. They would lay track out through the farmland that surrounded American cities. And they'd find somewhere nice to go. Could be out in a forest, could be by a river, by a lake. And the rationale was that you would ride out there because you had no car in 1900.
Right.
They would be too far out to walk, so you would ride the trolley car out there, and they'd make money from that fare alone. And then you'd get to whatever they had provided. Probably cost you a nickel to get into the
Park.
park.
Yeah.
It could be a classic amusement park. Do you know Canopy Lake Park in
Yeah.
southern New Hampshire?
Yeah.
One of the classic streetcar parks, and you know, it would cost you another nickel to ride a carousel, to buy a hot dog. All that money was then going straight back to the streetcar company, and they're making money 7 days a week. And a few of those parks still exist. Canopy Lake, of course,
Yeah.
on Gangbusters. In Paula we have Riverton Park by the river, well out of the city centre. And you might just think for a minute what city centres were like in 1900. All the traffic was horse-drawn. There were no
Right.
automobiles. New York City, hard to believe this, New York City had 60,000 horses.
Yep.
Wow.
I mean, if you can imagine a horse here, can you imagine 6 horses here?
A lot of food.
Yeah, and they made a fortune selling that to the farmers in what was then the Bronx.
Right.
And New York City's developed in the 60s. So, having a
Well,
nice...
you said developed, I'm not too sure. Not for the positive.
It's changed.
Yes,
shall
it's
we
changed
say.
to great.
Yeah. Yeah, so where was I? In the Bronx. Yeah.
Yes, that they sold them.
Yeah, so
Oh,
the point being that, you know, cities were not nice places to be, and a car like that one, we call them a breezer, completely open air car, was the equivalent of air conditioning, because even that didn't exist.
Right.
So that would be doing something that should be doing.
That's exactly right, and that's why those cars survived a lot longer. They had the Connecticut Car Company, which is where that car is from, were rich enough to have 2 sets of cars. This car is called a semi-convertible. We haven't, for some reason, not many windows today, but the windows on this car kind of go up into the ceiling, and you get something of the effect of a completely open car. On a conventional street car, they don't, and you only get a little window. Connecticut Car Company were able to keep a separate fleet of cars just for summer use. And one of the reasons they survived for so long was to get people from the railroad station to the Yale bull games. And George Bush Sr. remembers riding on those cars at that time. There were several dozen of those cars waiting at the railroad station, and they could shift 1,000 people in basically one movement. And at the end of the game, the same dozens and dozens of cars would be there. That car seats 75 people. We've got pictures of it with probably 150 hanging off the side. riding on the Atlantic shoreline. That was a line that was built the early years of this last century, 1900. Initially to connect the coast with Sanford, and would bring coal in. It was a freight, electric, but it was a freight railroad to bring coal in to the mills in Sanford. And then it expanded, so it went south to Kittery and north to Biddeford. And the big interchange was at Five Corners, just down Log Cabin Road, a short distance. It was quite a large system. There were stories that you could get on a streetcar in Augusta, Maine, and by constantly changing companies, because each company basically served a town or two, you could get all the way to Albany, New York, you could get to Atlantic City, all by trolley car. You'd need a bag of nickels this big, and it would probably take you 2 or 3 days, but you could do it. And the alternative, of course, was the Boston and Maine Railroad, which didn't make as many stops. So we actually own about 5 miles of this old Atlantic shoreline track bed. They went out of business in the 1920s. Took all of the rail and all of the overhead equipment with them when they went out of business. When the museum started in 1939, we were able to park the very first car we acquired, which came from Biddeford. Pretty much where you pulled into the museum, that's where the old track bed was. And over the years that followed, the MIT students that acquired that car for $100 started getting the museum going, membership going, and collecting other cars. To the point that we now own something very close to 300 vehicles. It's a huge, huge collection. There's nothing anywhere in the world even remotely like it. That doesn't make us the best museum in the world, but it's certainly the largest. Because we've got cars from as far as New Zealand, from Australia, from Japan. The Japanese car came, it's a very small car, came in a wooden crate that was made of what you might call exotic woods. You know, Japanese woods, hardwoods. And we took the crate apart. We didn't just demolish it, we took it apart. And we used the wood to restore other cars. And then we've got cars from most of the European countries. We've got 4 double-deckers from the UK, one of which we may see running next year. And we've got a large Canadian collection. And you'll see about 50 of those cars on display in the exhibit barns. So
Are trolleys all the same gauge, unlike the trains from country to country?
more or less. There are some variations. Philadelphia had its own, Glasgow in Scotland had its own. Some of it was to do with whether or not a railroad car could or couldn't run on the same tracks that was Philly. They didn't want them, so they made the trolley gauge different. In Glasgow, it had to do with the profiles of railroad wheels. It just didn't fit quite right, so Glasgow was about a half-inch different. And they're all, one sort, but for the most part, yes. This particular car is from Boston. So we haven't seen it for a number of years. I don't know when it was built, probably 1920s or something like that. Does it tell you that?
The plaque up there says Laconia Car Company.
Right. I just can't remember the date on this car.
Yeah, it doesn't say.
But it's pretty typical of a Boston street car. And this was one of the last cars running in Boston on the surface lines on the Fellsway, if you know. Do you know Boston at all?
A little bit.
Well, the Fellsway was what we call a classic streetcar suburb. The Boston system laid track of pure speculation out through the farmland, initially to a destination called, I think it's called the Fells Reservation. It's just a nature area, and that would be the amusement park. But what happened was they also bought land on either side of this track, out in the farmland. And people realized they could live close to the city, they could build a house right up by the trolley car tracks, and be in Boston in 10 minutes. Remember, still no cars. And the Fellsway is still there. And we could take this car down there, and we could park it in front of the White Church, and we could take a photograph of this car exactly as we already have that photograph taken back in the 1920s. It's all still there. The only difference is Route 93 would be in the background. But we could repeat that photograph. All right, we need to head for home. Excuse me a minute. Seashore 4387 dispatch.
I've got two people calling 838, hold your position please. Break. Dispatch to 4387.
4387, Channel Park, we have a green board.
4387, you're on this to Morris now.
4387, Morris now.
Coming out, Joe, 112, ready.
Right, now we didn't go up to Hannah.
He does it all the time.
Said stop, stop.
I thought something was crossing. I guess
Said
it's
stop.
the older man.
Just saying to stop. We come down 60 feet. Going downhill. You guys can walk.
Only if there's one of them board sidewalks.
All right, I'll take it from here.
You did fantastic, baby. Did you like that?
I could be a temporary. Seashore 43 is something different. Run like hell. Okay.
Run like hell.
The Canadian car is going out in a minute. That's that cream one that's built like a double-decker. Almost, almost. If you wanted to take a ride on that. We're only running it once a day, so if you want to ride it, this is the chance to do it.
There it is.
Oh yeah, look at that. That's,
I wonder how much.
I don't think it, I don't know. Just, I think we should just do it. We'll worry about it.
Okay.
Okay,
Well, together if you would.
do they charge us to get on this one?
No, it's all part of the ticket
Experience.
See me later on, and I'll sign your. Very good, thank you.
Thank you.